everybody to the Norton Planning Board's meeting of Tuesday, November 28th, 7:15. While this was posted as a hybrid meeting, both in person and on Zoom, we are having technical difficulties with the Zoom portion of our meeting this evening. So unfortunately, we'll have to move forward with the in-person session only. This meeting will be available to view after the meeting. This meeting will be able to be viewed on Norton Cable Access, Channel 15, and will also be available for viewing post-meeting for anybody looking to catch up on what we discussed. For future sessions, to avoid potential technical issues, please feel free to email questions to the board ahead of the meeting to Brian Carmichael, town staff. So, as I mentioned, everybody, we do have challenges with the Zoom meeting this evening. We haven't had any issues with it in probably more than a year, so stuff happens. So going into our call to order in general business, we do have nothing specific in terms of business and policies at this point. I will try and just talk a little bit about OpenGov at the end of the session and the new platform. Now we do have one bill which I'll pass around so people can view it. Brian, come on, just that. It is shockingly the monthly Verizon bill, so very, very surprising, giving us the exact same amount every month that we review it.
Host is joined.
We're seeing movement?
I did, it just,
Oh, yes, I do see that now.
I put it, I minimized it and it just popped back up again.
I had not, so I will see if anything happens here. If the Zoom meeting does start, then I will do a bit of a reintroduction. And here we go.
Just as you say that. Okay. Brian, can you go get Shane just to make sure that they know that the digital meeting is available? And I'll just ask, just to confirm if people on the Zoom meeting can hear us in the room. Just give us 1 second. Okay.
No, we have video and audio.
Okay. And just to confirm, if everybody can hear us on the Zoom meeting, Wayne, can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we've gotten through our Zoom issues today, so we're going to call this a win and we're going to move on. I had started reading the agenda saying that this was going to be in person only, but obviously this meeting is available on Zoom as well. The meeting is available on the Zoom app using meeting ID 638-929-1060. There's also a dial-in number to join via phone directly. So, at the risk of repeating myself, we're going to go into our agenda this evening. I do want to save a bit of time at the end just to touch on the OpenGov platform that we are starting to roll out in town with the board members. But absent that, we can get into the rest of our agenda. The first item on the agenda is an A&R endorsement, which is noted as A&R 3. Again, with the new platform, all the numbers are starting again. And this is 0 West Main Street. And I believe we have Mr. Signowski here joining the Zoom meeting for us to discuss.
Yes, good evening. Do you need me to share screen or do you have the plan?
If you have it available and you'd like to share, you certainly can.
Do you see that?
It says you have started screen sharing, but it's taking a second. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so the history of this site is this was all part of the Catholic church land that goes over onto Power Street. And back in 2019, came before the board and created 3 lots that were approved by the planning board and has been recorded. Then the land was sold to SRO Development, and they are in the process of creating a site plan that will come before you at some time in the future. I'm really not that involved in it, just the property lines, we locate the wetlands. Wetlands has been approved by Norton Conservation through an ANRAD filing. And the engineer that's involved in the site plan has decided they need 2 lots. So what we're looking to do tonight is dissolve the 3 lots and then create 2 conforming lots. So we're in the commercial zone with a requirement of 120 feet of frontage, and lot 1 has 259 and lot 2 has 166. Based on what they're trying to do, the lot sizes vary, but the minimum lot square footage is 18,000 square feet, and both of these lots, lot 1 is at 61,459, and lot 2 is at 87,064, with each one of them having, lot 1 has 26,774 contiguous square feet, lot 2 has 73,288 contiguous square feet of upland. So we meet the frontage and we can't access our lots through the frontage. The lot area meets the minimum for a lot in this zone. And so we're asking for an endorsement on the A&R. If there are any questions that I can answer?
And I do remember looking at this a few years ago vaguely, but yeah, I don't have any specific questions. It seems to be fairly straightforward.
One question is, the 2 lots, one is basically a square and one of them has like a jog on it?
Yeah, it comes down 258 feet and then jogs over to the left.
Okay.
That upland area that comes down along the bottom here is included in this lot here. So it is L-shaped.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay. Does anybody have any additional questions at this time? Otherwise, I look for a motion to endorse the A&R.
Motion to, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, motion to approve or motion to
Endorse.
endorse?
Okay, we have a motion to endorse. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to endorse A&R 3? Hearing none, I will go through the roll. Eric, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The A&R is endorsed. We'll sign the copies that we have here, and you'll be able to pick them up in the near future.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Okay. Moving on to the rest of our agenda, we have 3 items to review.
Do it on order since Al's here and I'm saying still.
So we have 3 agenda items from our past sessions. We wanted to review our findings and conditions. And then we have a discussion item about the Pine Street Cluster Balfour Farms, and that developer is here. So unless anybody has any objections, I'm inclined to take them kind of out of order and have them provide their update, and then we can dive into going into our decisions. Okay? Pop right up.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Alan Drunas. Thanks for having me. So I just want to give you an update of what's going on at Balfour. So we're getting ready to, hopefully on Friday, pave the first of the 2 roads. And we've been working with all the different departments, water, sewer, Department of Public Works, getting them to come for inspections. Although this, with the Department of Public Works, I mean, they've watched the drainage, they've watched I went again today to ask him to come look at the gravel in the road and paving, but what I'd like to suggest or try to do, and I've done in the past, is there is an outside firm that actually does work for the town anyways, I think for the Conservation Commission, an engineering firm, is to see if I could, of course with your approval, set up an account where I would pay, and technically the town of Norton would hire that company to be a third party, like, review of what the work we're doing. Because at some point here, we're gonna be coming back to you for lot releases. We're gonna need to establish the value of the remaining work. And I don't know that you really have anybody that is gonna be able to take whether the numbers I present or create numbers to value that work. And this company I'm talking about is Amory Engineering, Pat Brennan. Regardless of what, if you want to do it or not, I still would probably have them at my own on the job. We want people to, we want to do the right thing. So you don't have a town engineer, obviously. You did have peer review, but as far as someone on the ground, this company I'm thinking of, we've done stuff with them in Easton, West Bridgewater, and like I said, I know they're doing stuff in Norton on peer reviews for conservation. So if you guys could see it that way, we would have him probably there for paving, and even though I have asked the highway department to come look while we're doing the paving, or come every day, any day. We have nothing to hide, but I just, the more people that are looking, I don't want any issues. We have an outside firm came today and did compaction tests of the gravel. Any of the other, the water and sewer is witnessed by the water and sewer department. They witness the testing of the water mains, witness the testing of the sewer mains. But this part of it is someone to visually see things, but it's also, again, for the planning board's benefit, you're gonna need somebody to help establish that roadway cost estimate of what's left to finish the road and agree on a value.
Okay.
So if you guys could see a way clear to proving that, I would put Brian and those guys together, set up an account where, just like a peer review account, where give you a couple thousand, or whatever we're gonna do to keep it funded, so that when we need them, we can call them, hey, come on out, look at this, look at that, and just, because it's a large project, we're only doing one of the roads right now, then we're starting the other one, so it's I think it's good for everybody.
So Amory would be being paid essentially to outsource some of the town's inspection work from various departments. That's your goal.
Right, but that doesn't stop town boards from, departments from coming, it just formalizes it, I guess.
So I have no objection to, when we come to a point where we're looking for a surety, partial release, something like that, looking at a report from Amory and saying, this much is done, this much is left. And if that's coming from a peer review style account where we're being hired by the town, I can take that with a degree of independence on their part. And that it's not you making up numbers that make you feel good because
No, but
not that I don't trust you, but I'm cynical.
But I don't want that. That's why I'm here now, because I don't want you to be, I don't want to, I don't want to put you guys in that position. It's not worth it. So, and Amory or any engineering firm is not going to put their credentials on the line for me or anybody. It's just, that's not worth it. I just figured it'd be better, why don't we do the protocol? I give the money to the town gives the money to, if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, I'll just hire him directly and give you his report, but however you want to do it.
Okay.
I'm comfortable, but I just think it's something
So
I'm gonna do regardless, if you wanna do it this way.
yeah, I mean, I don't have any issue with it, but I'm also not somebody who needs to be doing the inspections. So I would view it as something where I don't have any objections from a philosophical standpoint. I'm not sure if anybody else feels differently, but you need to, if you wanted to, him to stand in, his people to stand in for water and sewer or building inspector, then each of those department heads is gonna need to sign on that they're good with this.
He's not gonna stand in for them. That's, but I think there's some gaps there that need to, you know, water and sewer, no one's standing in for them. They're gonna do their own thing.
Yeah.
They have Weston and Sampson that's doing all the review of our designs and making their recommendations to them to what they want us to use for materials and so forth. And then they have their own people on site all the time when we're working.
Yeah.
But things like reviewing the compaction tests, putting the paperwork together, making sure the gravel is what it's supposed to be, making sure that we're paving, I don't expect Jared to stand there all day or whatever, on a moment's notice to watch us pave. Come on over and watch us, but he's got plenty to do. So,
Everybody
drainage,
does.
he's nice enough to come out before we backfill, he looks at the pipes, yep, you did it. But somebody at the end of this has to say, well, all the drainage is done, or 90% is done, or this is done, that's not done. And as we go forward, at the end, there's gonna be a punch list. Who's gonna generate the punch list? Well, it has to be somebody,
Yeah.
he doesn't have the time to do that, and the buck stops with him.
Yeah.
I think, I don't wanna speak for anybody, but I'm just making an observation here and saying that, resources are limited, for the town as far as manpower and time, so.
I
So
mean,
if you want me to hire Anne Marie, I can do that,
I mean-
if you guys are all right with it, but I'm just bringing it up to you ahead of time instead of after the fact.
my vision, you can hire whoever you want to help you with your own engineering on the site.
Okay?
And if there's some kind of, and that could just be on your own. If there's a matter of doing something as it relates to inspections and things like that, where the town is, I'm gonna say outsourcing that again, that's something that each department would need to be good with individually. I don't recall doing that before with any other, with any other projects, but I don't see any challenges with it. I'll go to.
I don't think we need a peer review account. I think a letter from Anne Marie or a letter from any engineer, I think that's pretty standard what we've dealt with in the past, isn't it?
Okay, that's
just
fine.
my
He's setting that up just from a
More
financial
comfortable.
independent standpoint,
Yep.
so that we would look at things from Amory as independent rather than, well, the guy you hired is making this, so.
Yeah. My experience is that, like you said, they're not gonna bend over backwards for anyone, they're not gonna lie, cheat, or steal for anyone.
No, they're not, but I don't wanna give you a roadway cost estimate, I wanna give it to an engineer and have him challenge my numbers. And when it comes to you, it comes from an engineer saying that, hey, this is what it is, and then we work out the final number with contingencies and how we're gonna do it, so.
I think it's smart for you to hire somebody to guide you through the whole process of it and make everything legible for any department that needs the information. But I don't see a situation where your engineer would supersede an inspection from the town at any point.
But we're not gonna
So-
supersede anybody,
so I
we're just
don't know why
just
it
trying to
would
put it
be
all together, that's
formalized.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even having problems with any inspections?
Not at all.
No issues.
Not at all whatsoever. No, everybody's been great to work with, and I want to keep it that way. I'm not here no, not at all. I mean, to the point where I can stop and see water, sewer, DPW, and then bang, they're up there. They've been very good to me, so I'm very pleased with that. So I'll just, at that point, then what I'll do is I'll engage him, and then when it comes time to do the roadway cost estimate, we'll bring you one, and then you guys can agree or disagree. And at least you'll have an engineer that says, I'm verifying this is the work that's done.
Yeah,
Okay?
no objections to that? I don't think we need to vote or anything.
We don't need to talk a lot about this, but when it comes time to get lot releases, I don't know how you people normally do it. We've done it different ways where right now we have 44 lots that are under covenant. Ultimately, once we pave this road and we have some other items we have to tie in the water to Briggs Street, tie in the sewer, some other items, and then we're gonna be looking to release probably half, which would be 22 lots. It's our hope to be able to give you, remain, the other 22 remain, and give us the 22 back, because there's certainly plenty of value. It's all about dollars and cents, hoping that the 22 you're gonna keep are gonna exceed the value of the work that's remaining on the section. So I'm not asking you to agree, I'm just throwing out there, that's kind of the direction that we're looking to go in, because we have so many lots that are undercovered. We wouldn't be putting up a bond, of any sort other than that, because that would, again, I don't even know, it's not even fair for me to say what the cost to complete of phase one or Lloyd Circle is gonna be. It's gonna be a lot less than what 22 lots are worth. So that's kind of the direction that we're headed in, so. But
Okay.
that's probably another 30, 45 days down the road.
I tend to defer to what the treasurer wants in terms of sureties and everything else, so.
Okay. Good. All right, I guess that's it. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you after the first of the year.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
okay. So, moving on to the remainder of our agenda, are you still able to get in?
I lost signal, and now I'm just in the waiting room.
Okay,
So,
well, I will attempt to share in your stead here. So, reviewing findings and conditions for 3 recent decisions.
Reservoir Street, the one I was saying that I was gonna finish, is done. Here's a printed version. I would share it, but obviously I can't.
Okay. So we just have the one printed? Or is it,
Well,
did you email it or no?
originally I was just gonna Zoom share, but
Have you sent it to us in email or no?
no, I had finished it after.
Okay. So I'm not sure if we're ready to go into this one yet, if we don't have a copy that we
Well, I
can kind of review as a group.
I could send it.
If you send it to me, I can put it up, so. Alright, so I'll start with 280. And I'm gonna share here the decision on the screen. And technology is going to work with me and agree with me and be gentle. We will see. So, here we go. So again, 280, this is the findings of decision. And we have some of our finding of facts in terms of advertisement and things like that. These are the special permit criteria, conditions of approval, and here is our vote. We voted 3-4, so the special permit was not approved. And because it was not approved, we do not have any conditions.
Although, under specific findings, it is recommended that we list the reasons for denial.
Okay.
And so I left it blank in case, I wrote something that was not
Okay.
reflected upon the board.
Okay. So in terms of reasons for denial, this was 280 New Taunton. So I would say this was an expansion of the use beyond what was allowed by right.
That is fair. I don't know if it's like
I can't.
a greater intensity of use, because it's,
Yes.
Well, we have specific standards for issuing special permits. We need to tell them what standards were not met.
Correct.
That's how you judge whether a special permit gets approved.
Okay. So.
not
Here are
socially desirable.
Here's our standard conditions. Yep, not that one, right here. So, project will be socially and economically desirable, satisfy an existing need, and manages outweigh by far detrimental effects, such effects in the neighborhood and environment, showing significant grade that can be expected from development if the permit were denied. Applicant has no reasonable alternative available to accomplish the set purpose of the project, and specific conditions would minimize detrimental effects and protect the neighborhood. But E is not relevant since it was not approved.
Yeah, I would quote pretty much exactly the advantages of the proposal did not outweigh by far any detrimental effects, more negative effects on the neighborhood environment than if it wasn't granted.
Okay, let me just put my Microsoft Word skills to use here.
And there appears to be a reasonable alternative to accomplish the purpose.
What's that?
Just do it differently.
And what was the second part of that, Alan?
Sorry.
I just shortened that first one.
Yep.
And the other one you were discussing, I believe, was just in relation to
The
reasonable
standard,
alternative.
the standard, yeah, exactly. The standard is the applicant has no reasonable alternative available to accomplish. I would, I would specifically highlight also. How do we highlight specifically the detrimental effects on the neighbors more than what we said already?
I mean, A, the socially, like, not desirable, the whole neighborhood spoke out about the people that showed up. Several
Yeah,
people
that's
spoke
kinda
out
what I was
against it.
I just added in the neighborhood, or in the neighborhood to that first one. Just call that out. That would be how I would form that.
Does that have a specificity?
I think it is adequate for the purposes that we're trying here.
Okay.
Could we be more specific? Yes, potentially.
Do you want to be more specific? No.
That just says specific findings, but I mean, if this is standard procedure, it's fine too.
I'll put a cynic hat on here again. Anything that we put here in a specific finding is something that the applicant would look at in terms of appeal, potentially,
Mm-hmm.
so.
I would expect.
That sounds good.
So, if there's nothing further, I will save this and send it to Brian for finalization.
I think it's fair, those two are fair.
Okay. So, stop sharing and save here. Okay. Next one is Zero Reservoir. You did send that one. This one, I know people have not had a chance to review, so I will pull this up here and we'll run through it. So this is Zero Reservoir, for a definitive plan. So this one has a lot more sheets and different map details.
Just let me do the basics, because this one has special permitting, special permit criteria. you're getting on now.
Yep. So here are the special permit criteria. And standard conditions. And in terms of specific conditions, Brian, did you want to call out anything specific that was added for this site?
For reservoir,
Correct.
I don't believe there were waivers, but,
So it was just our standard conditions. We don't have anything in here tied to the conservation restriction.
conservation restriction,
They just had a meeting, shoot it the other day, or yesterday, I think, for the,
Yeah, but just in terms of it's noted on the plans, I believe. But if we're not, if we feel that noting it on the plans is sufficient, or if we feel like we want to add in an additional condition prior to construction tied to that, we could do so.
okay. That's definitely gonna be a big part of it.
Yeah, I think this is, since it's something that the applicant proposed and has talked about us with, for it's obviously not a condition which would raise any ire. So, let me take a step back here. So, again, our special permit criteria are here. Standard conditions, talks about posting, talks about time before it can expire. Needs to be approved by the building commissioner, needs to get all their permits. Connections infrastructure has to be approved. Conservation Commission order of conditions. Maybe included. And then prior to construction, copy is kept on site. Town clerk will keep a copy.
for the header, the number in permit is 20336.
For,
So for definitive plan, you'll see in parentheses that
oh,
there's a number.
okay, so that needs to be filled in.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So construction fencing, as is waste. Construction has to follow the plan. All right, occupancy. Again, approvals, homeowner association, including the open space maintenance plan, requires the planning board at least 2 weeks prior to occupancy. Snow removal plan should be designed to ensure line of sight.
I'm not sure if that was from previous, but that's part of the standards, but I left it in there.
Yeah, I think that's good. There should be no outdoor storage. 1 second here. Proposed signs, applicant inspection with conservation.
Do we need to put anything about, like, the easement for public use?
That would be on the plan.
Okay.
again, that could be something that we include in the prior construction. We can include it in the open space maintenance plan, or something here as well. And then post occupancy should maintain landscaping, fencing, and lighting as indicated. Best practices. So, we have two specific conditions that are called out here. Scrolled right by them again. Here we go. So, these two right here.
Which, I'm sorry.
2 and 3 under final occupancy.
Sorry, I should highlight. Right here, right on, sorry. This two. Of course. Okay. So, my position would be that we probably want to add a condition tied to the conservation restriction and the public access easement.
And the arborist.
Okay. So, I'll do one at a time here. So applicant provide so the applicant should provide the planning board as well as other town departments with documentation required for the noted conservation restriction, as well as public access easement. Spelling here, okay. So, if they're providing, there's a whole process around the conservation restriction, so if they're providing all the documentation around that, then that
So we
makes
tell
sense.
them what we wanted and then they impose it?
I'm sorry, in terms of,
So
we've already, so the,
things like no irrigation system, no fertilization.
they provided the draft.
Who provided the draft?
They did prior to our last meeting.
With the stuff that we would have added?
No.
That doesn't make sense because we would have added
We just
stuff.
voted on it on the 14th.
They had provided a draft conservation restriction before we
Right,
voted.
we wanted it amended.
Oh,
We
okay.
haven't seen that.
Okay,
So they need to add the arborist, the irrigation, pesticide, fertilization, snow and ice
updated
treatment.
to include restrictions to fertilizer and pesticide.
Snow and ice treatment.
Conservation restriction should be updated to include restrictions to fertilizer and pesticides and snow and ice treatments.
Prohibition of irrigation systems.
I apologize if anybody hears my phone vibrating all over the place. My company has a town hall session, which with our team in China, so I am getting hundreds of email forward notifications right now. It's lovely.
Fun.
So, so this is what we've added right here. So we have conservation restrictions should be updated to include restrictions to fertilizer and pesticides, the prohibition of irrigation systems, and snow and ice treatments. I'm gonna just take this and move it up because it's,
Should we just say, it's technically prohibition of all of those things as opposed to a restriction?
I don't think it's a full restriction of any fertilizers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I specifically asked for broad application, so,
As long as the HOA is not hiring a company to do it, I guess that would follow the rules. It's hard to limit a homeowner from doing it in their own yard,
It is
but.
part of the conservation restriction. When you buy the land, you buy the conservation
yeah,
restrictions.
you agree to abide by it.
And the Conservation Commission did approve their snow melting, which was calcium, magnesium.
Yeah, environmentally friendly.
Yeah, this is what Ned had told me, that this was the one that the Conservation Commission had approved that they had presented.
What's the name of it, Brian? Just read it again.
Calcium, magnesium, acetate.
Acetate?
Acetate.
Yeah. It's a, yeah, they've had a good line of communication with John Thomas.
Okay.
I felt like a fifth wheel, whatever, in that call when they were discussing the conservation restriction. Because they were 3 levels beyond what I was prepared to discuss in like that. Okay, so we've added that. And the additional question about the arborist, Laura, I would add that, again, prior to construction.
Yep.
An arborist shall be retained to provide guidance on to the applicant in citing
Housing lots, yeah. No, that's good. Proposed housing lots.
housing lots in an effort to preserve as much mature tree cover and other so in an effort to preserve as much mature tree cover and other land features as feasible.
Yep. Maybe include mature and sensitive.
Mature and or sensitive. I'm gonna say natural features as. Okay,
Do we want to put vegetation and tree cover? Do we want? Are we trying to preserve bushes?
that's for the arborist to decide.
Blue area bushes and trees, but they're okay.
So, I've added vegetation. It is now within the arborist's purview for this condition. So again, if we find something that the arborist feels is, yeah. Okay. Other things that we wanted to add here in terms of specific conditions for a zero reservoir.
We have the HOA in here, right?
The HOA is, yes, it is right here. Homeowner association documents, including the open space maintenance plan, provided by the planning board at least 2 weeks prior to occupancy.
For the public easement, do we have to specify that it should follow like town public park rules, like the timing? Like the homeowners association can't post their own hours?
Sure. Let's see, that would be. So, let's put it here.
Something about should be administered following the same bylaw as public parks or town parks.
I'll say the homeowners association, oh, I can't spell tonight. Shall not let's see, so I'll say, homeowners association shall create or enforce any rules regarding public easement be onerous or overly restricted, using the town's guidance on parks and open areas as.
I don't like onerous or overly because they're debatable.
Yes.
I would like change that to say, like, they can't restrict it in a greater fashion than our bylaw allows. Like,
If we're not, it's not a, so the recommendation is that, what are they looking at in terms to follow?
well, I think
Like the hours for a tricentennial, or,
well, like, just like if somebody shows up on shore at 8 o'clock, can they be told to get off? Because on public property, like Juniper Beach, you can show up till 10 o'clock. Like, how late until they can call the police to remove somebody? Do they get to close it off for a private event, like that? Like, I would like to make sure it follows the same public park rules.
Are they all the same though?
why don't we,
We have a bylaw for public park use.
how about, if I go in a completely different direction? Rules governing the use of public access areas
Will not be infringed.
will be determined jointly with the town's parks and recreation department.
That's good.
You'll make the rules with the town parks. They'll probably look at Juniper Beach and say, here's what we do at Juniper Beach. So that way it's,
Well, that also gives, does that give Parks and Recreation authority to close it off? Also, again, I don't want to give anybody power to close it off at any time other than beyond the town's 10 o'clock. I would think just the homeowners
So you're
association can't
are you
enforce
thinking about the,
rules.
like, private events for the pool, like that kind of stuff?
Exactly, I wouldn't want that to happen all summer long. I really would not want that to happen all summer long.
I wouldn't either.
So I would just say the homeowners association can't enforce a more restrictive set of rules than the town bylaw. They might choose to allow something greater, but they can't restrict it more, if that makes sense. Like they could,
There's
because
so
it's
much
private property.
nuance to it. Yeah.
I just wouldn't want it to make it less than a public park. According to our town bylaw for parks.
Can we just set the hours?
You know, I mean, it just kind of just leaves it up to what our bylaw says for the uses.
I'm not sure we have a bylaw specific enough to go with.
Yeah,
Honestly, I think the jointly way is kind of the way to go if you want some kind of control over outside the HOA. That's kind of fair.
I mean, we could put private events that prevent public access are restricted.
Done.
That's,
I mean, that's okay.
that basically
Yeah,
says you can have a party, but you can't keep other people from using the beach.
that's fair. I would still like to just, yeah, as long as we can keep the hours open.
Yeah, I assume the town would agree to rules that are, you can use it between 2 and 2:30 in the morning on the second Tuesday after a blue moon.
Cool. I mean, yeah.
Let's see, so. During. So events which do not allow for public access during hours of use are restricted. So,
You wanna just refer to the chapter 100,
that's the.
parks and public property, because it's just as hours of operation 100-1, which is what Steve's referring to, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. is when it's not available.
Yeah, I mean, that would go for anything, so that goes without saying.
Yeah.
So the,
Just saying, if you wanted to simplify it, you could just refer to what number it is. But it's up to you guys.
governed by, what's the bylaw?
Chapter 100, so it's general bylaw. Chapter 100, 100-1.
So, they'll say hours of operation to otherwise be governed by the town's general bylaw. So, if they don't agree to anything else, that's what stays. Which is shut off between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So,
Should we specify that for public use, or do we allow residents to be there beyond the time? Like, should we say only public use?
that sounds,
Or is that too,
Well, it says no person shall enter in or remain in any public park, common, cemetery, or any other town-owned property between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. on any day, except as authorized by permit.
but that's
so
not
they would
town
need,
owned?
so they would need a permit to, yeah,
But that's not
Or-
a town owned property.
but still,
Would fall under
Is
open
the
space,
public
wouldn't it?
park. Or any other, so it's not saying all of those items have to be town-owned.
Okay.
So, hours of operation are under the general bylaw, other than if town and homeowner association agree on something different and or agree to some kind of permit plan,
Okay.
like E3 or something else.
I don't think if somebody's up there at 11 o'clock, there's gonna be a problem anyway, but,
I mean,
unless they're causing a ruckus.
yeah, that,
So, and therefore.
I assume that there is ruckuses, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
that sounds good.
okay.
We do have the requirement to provide the easement for the public access here, right?
I put that,
Okay,
yes. Yes, I put it in that one,
got it.
just providing everything,
Yep.
including public access easements. I put in parentheses because if the structure is 1 or 2 or whatever. So, are there any additional conditions that we wanted to discuss related to this approval? If we don't feel comfortable moving forward with it, and we wanna look at it again, we can do that, we have time to do so. I think we have, what is it, 30, 40 days to issue a decision or something like that? Yeah, so. If people feel like we want to spend more time on it, we can. If people feel like we're good, we can tell Brian that we're all set.
The, prior to final occupancy, the snow removal plans,
Yes.
were they sorry, I don't remember exactly, did they show on the,
I don't believe they showed specific snow removal areas.
maybe we want to restrict, shall be placed as far away from the reservoir as possible? Or sighted?
Cited to,
Um,
cited away from
I mean, I know we got 2 retention basins and everything's just gonna wind up there anyways, but,
don't push it all into the water.
yeah. Or if, conservation comes back and doesn't allow building on one of the lots, they can't use it to dump their snow there.
Yeah, so that's an edit to that.
Yeah. I don't think they would have an issue with that.
Cited with this always feels weird to me, but I know it's correct.
Well, instead of removal, how about storage?
Okay, that works. Okay. Anything further? Okay. Is there anybody who wants to say that they're not comfortable closing this one out, and they would like to hold it for another week, for another bit to have more time to review? Otherwise, I will save it and pass it along.
Is the no outdoor storage?
That's a standard condition.
I know, but does it have to be there? So you can't store your kayaks outside? You can't store your lawnmower outside? You can't store, you know what I'm saying? It seems a little,
I noticed that one myself, and I kind of, like, that doesn't include sheds, right?
It is.
That's indoors?
It is prior to final occupancy. I think it's generally
prior,
designed
okay.
for like
yeah, that's fine.
equipment.
Well, I mean, they're gonna be storing equipment outside.
Well,
They're gonna be storing
but like,
pallets of stuff outside, there'll be pipe everywhere.
you're not supposed to have a bulldozer at your house all the time. I believe that's the,
So they can't store any drainage pipe on site until,
yeah.
Ever?
It's a standard condition.
yeah. It's a,
We've had challenges with it before with other plans as well.
yeah, I remember saying something about it before.
We had challenges with Yale Appliance.
That was-
That may not be the one you're thinking of, but I know we
No, it's
talked
not.
about it because there was a question about like, well, what if they have like a display fire pit by the entrance of their showroom? Is that outdoor storage?
The mannequin display thing that was up front, or their appliances display case.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So that was a question that I know we brushed up against.
Does that mean that it just needs to be, whatever storage is there needs to be cleaned up just before the occupant arrives?
Yeah.
Like this
If we are
list-
comfortable removing it, we can remove it.
It's just weird, and this, if you think specifically to site development, I gotta go build a house on one of,
You're gonna have stuff stored outside until the house is
Everywhere.
built. Yeah,
if I'm gonna build the road and put drainage in, and put,
there's gonna be a bulldozer there for a while, yeah.
there's gonna be everything stored outside the whole time.
But you also.
But if you remove that, can they put an occupant in the house without removing their storage?
This would not let them. You'd have to remove the stuff before final occupancy, so you have to clear out your equipment before.
I think it's a checklist more than, like,
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be a permanently ever before it's all done. It just means before the occupant arrives, you need to get your equipment and
I
your
knew I should
materials
have
out.
My current thinking is let's leave it, because I think we have a consensus, but we should revisit that at some point.
Yeah.
Just make it more clear, be like, instead of using wood storage, just something, phrase like, get your stuff out of there before you let your first person live there. However we wanna say that. Make it a little more
The question's
concise.
also gonna be, okay, they're done with the right side of the road, they're done with the left side of the road. Does this cover the entire site?
Yeah, it's a discussion, but I think we have a general idea where we want to go, but I'd leave it for now.
Okay.
I was actually wondering if it was more for, okay, we've got a developer who's got multiple sites and 30 acres available here in Norton, right off the highway. Are they storing, their equipment and materials for 3 other sites at this one place? Or
Yeah, no, I think it's designed to, I think, promote clean sites, I believe. So, if we want to look at this for the future, we can do so. So, I'm hearing that we are good. So I will save this. And 1128 TG. So I know exactly which file we're talking about. And the third one is 0D. Unless I'm missing.
The other thing is just something that comes after the decision for zero reservoirs. That's more to do with what is the surety that they're doing a recap of the decision.
And that's the scanned, that's the certificate. Okay, so let me do the certificate first.
Certificate, we don't really have to do that.
Well,
We have to wait for the appeal period for zero reservoirs decision. But that's, once you put it up,
I'll just, yeah. So, before we move on our brains off of Zero Reservoir, this is the certificate of approval, Brian? Shoot.
So, this is something we just have that goes after the decision is approved. This is, they ask for an endorsement. This would be what we give them. It's the decision of us approving the definitive plan, and then further down it'll go through what they need to do for surety, which we haven't discussed fully yet with the applicant yet. So I have it still as what we had originally with the last person, which was either cash or bond.
Yeah. Whatever the treasurer is fine with is generally mine.
Yeah.
So, we don't need to do this yet, but it will come.
Yes.
Okay. So, stop that one. And one more here. Now my word skills were getting such a workout today. Here's 0D. So again, going through the conditions.
This one did have waivers. Did you want to add those to the end? Or?
I would add the waivers, yeah. Standard conditions. to construction. Nothing unique here, these are all standard. Prior to final occupancy. Again, no outdoor storage. Open space and fencing for the site will be depicted as on the plan. Landscape, maintain all of the landscape and lighting, I think that's standard. I don't think we have anything else that's necessarily custom for them.
The addition of the waivers, which
Uh,
I can do tomorrow.
I would also note that, right, it looks like we have Balfour Farms in the text here.
That was the last decision, so
Just make sure to update that one. For this one, do we want to see it with all the waivers written out? Or do we want to, are there any other conditions that we wanted to add at this point? I'm just gonna keep going through these pages until somebody says something, so.
I haven't had anything yet.
You wanna talk about outdoor storage again?
Outside. So. Pretty much the only custom one is the open space and fencing for the site will be depicted as depicted on the approved plan.
And that had specific details, right? It was if they disturbed within
Yeah.
20 feet of a,
It was open-ended
Boundary.
depending on how far.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that
But
whole
there
area
were-
in the back had was restricted as well.
The easement area. Okay.
Is there anything else that we wanted to add to this, other than the waivers? And again, I'll leave it to everybody if we feel comfortable with this as is, other than the additions, or if we wanna hold off and just look at it again with the waivers included.
I don't really have anything to add. I think the consensus was that they didn't want public access to that trail. So,
And the waivers were, like,
There
as
were a
long as
bunch
they
of-
matched what was on the plans, then
Yeah,
I'm fine.
okay. So I think we're good. I don't think I edited this one at all, so I won't do that. The only thing we need to do is update the Balfour Farms note in there and add the waivers. But, yeah, Brian, if you wanna just put that in, I'll look at it via email. And if I forget, please just remind me to look at my email. Because I probably looked at it and then got distracted by a shiny object.
I'll remind you the next day if I don't hear anything.
That works. Okay. So that goes through our posted agenda. I did want to just check and see of members who are here and joining us remotely, whether people first, I guess, got the emails, the invitations to OpenGov, B, were able to log in, and C, were able to find something.
I did not, I think.
You did not, okay.
All right, so
Wayne, were you able to get in?
No, I was not.
Okay,
I put in a password and it said activate and it didn't go anywhere. Logged in, didn't go anywhere.
That
deleting all the stuff after the
.com.
portion of after .com, and then trying to log in with the password she created. I think we're slowly transitioning over, so we're not there fully yet. There's some setup things that Brian and the rest of the town staff needs to work out.
I don't think I got the email.
So what we had is, we gave it to the town, the town version of your email.
Okay.
So if you're still having trouble with it, Steve, we can try to get you logged into that one.
Sure. I've never accessed it.
Yeah, we should sort that out.
Okay.
And
You haven't accessed your town email yet?
so
No.
Brian,
How
so
the hell is that possible? You don't know one?
so for Wayne, is there a specific person that he can email for support logging in?
Before we do, Alan, you said you had that problem?
Laura fixed it for me.
We all did.
Yeah, and I had the problem, and then I stopped doing it, but Laura showed me tonight, and I'm all set.
I can help you.
Okay. So Wayne, Laura will probably send you an email with a quick summary of what she did to get in, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then we can escalate to more techie people than us.
It's pretty easy. I'll help you.
Okay. Okay. So again, we'll just do a checkpoint on that at our next meeting to see if everybody's gotten in. If we need to do further training on it as we get moving in it, we'll try to do that in a way that makes sense so that it helps us all, so. Okay. Is there anything else anybody wanted to discuss in the open session this evening?
Yeah, if everybody's got a little bit of time, I guess. I mentioned I would bring up what I've been working on for zoning recently.
Okay.
If we want to get into that at all, 15 minutes or something.
Is this to the tracking spreadsheet, or is this different?
This has to do with just general bylaws.
Okay.
I'm just sending it over to
district
Tim real
coming
quick.
in.
Because I still can't get into Zoom to screen share what you sent me today.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pull up a few things and we can talk about it for a bit.
And I'm still working on getting us meetings with the attorney to talk about the bylaw changes.
You wanted suggestions of what we need to add, correct?
He gave me dates, but
No, I'm saying for specifics of what we want to talk about.
No, he actually has.
He gave us a summary of what he's proposing.
Yep, I didn't read it thoroughly. Was there anything with noise in there?
He doesn't have anything specific.
We need something specific.
I know, but I mean, for what he's going over, it's set up as introduction, and then he had it split up into residential, commercial. I don't know if you have anything that would.
Okay.
I'll go back and read through it.
So, Steve, so I have these 6 PDFs. Is there one that you want?
Go
me
with
to
the
look at?
zoning one first.
Okay.
It was really just sort of like a, I guess, an exercise in what we could do for zoning, and there's a lot of things that won't look familiar on here. It's
What is M?
it's really hard to
Manufacturing?
M would be just, well, I have 2 concept districts that I've theorized that we kind of need. One is that we need what I would call the park district that I put in P, and that would be a district that's based around conservation, agriculture, open space uses, for the most part. The other district that I think we kind of need, I just labeled it as the mill district, that's what I put as the M, and that's sort of like village commercial, but much lighter. So it would be more appropriate for like the neighborhood size, or like neighborhood uses. There's no warehouses or that kind of gas stations.
Okay. So,
This has gone through many iterations, and we have R80, R60, and R40. The R80, I think, needs to go to R90. I'll explain why in a minute. The R40, I think, should jump up to R45. The R60, I think, should be absorbed to the R45, and I think we need a new residential zone of R15, like a slightly smaller size. The reason why I'm picking these numbers is we also have Massachusetts law that wants 5-acre lots for farms or 2-acre lots for farms. The 2 acres requires at least 86,000 square feet or so, give or take. So, like, to bring it up to 90, kind of gives you all the land. That gives you 2 acres. To build those parcels, you'd want to build it out of what I refer to as the industrial acre. That's 45,000 square feet. The industrial acre is what we call for in our industrial district right now, 45,000 square feet of land. Right now, residential properties cannot be turned towards industrial. They can't be rezoned into industrial land. They don't fit the size generally, like an R40. And then when you have two 45,000s and you get to a 90,000 square feet, now you have 5 18,000 square foot lots. So that's how we get our village commercial and our commercial. Those are derived from that sizing. If we want our residential zones and our commercial industrial zones to be interchangeable over time and adaptable, then we should have them on the same, I guess,
Scale.
yeah, on the same scale. So then into like the park and mill where they're smaller sizes, and now that we have the village center core, we have a reference for 5,000 square foot lots. The Grove and King Philip Road are generally 5,000 square foot lots. That's how they were built. So the neighborhoods that we would create out of those type of zonings would be similar in size to those. And then we have to continue dissecting through there, but
okay.
but let's stop there. We'll get a couple questions off that.
So,
It's a lot.
trying to think. So the park district has small lots,
It would be capable of small lots.
but
But for
your
single family.
purpose is conservation.
It would, well, here's where we get into another thing, is if you go further into the zoning, in the park district and in the mill district as a base district, there is no housing allowed. The housing comes from overlays. So, so using the park district as a conservation area, you could use it without housing. If you added in the overlay, which I'll hand out the papers in a moment, then
So
the
essentially, any disturbance in that park zone is by permit, essentially, is that?
basically, yeah.
Okay.
There's,
So
I
it's
mean,
almost
agriculture is by right, and you know, you can have an educational facility, childcare, that kind of
Don't
thing.
remember D yet.
But it would be minimized to basically the lowest of uses. That would allow us to designate a certain end of town or a certain area of town that's already woods as that district. It would allow certain agriculture, like private uses, but it would keep it from being built up. I suppose that would be something like maybe the Rehoboth end of town is a lot of woods.
Okay.
And then as far as the mill district, it's basically, it tends for retail and restaurants, is really what it wants. And then it also doesn't have housing on it, so it can be built up like a commercial district in its own. Or if you add the housing to it, it can be like a mixed use neighborhood.
Okay. Okay. I haven't gone through all these documents. Do you have,
There's a lot in there. Any of the uses that have an asterisk next to it is something I've added in that we don't have on our chart. There's a few of them, maybe a
and those
dozen.
are in the other attachments, right?
It's in the same list.
Yeah, I see. So we do not have specific calls out for those types of farms. Micro livestock, is that just a couple of livestock?
Micro livestock is like critters, like bugs, basically.
Okay. So, small creatures rather than small quantities.
Yeah.
We would, I've never thought of asking for a definition of micro livestock.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was gonna talk about baby goats or something. Okay. Aquaculture, okay. Petting zoo, okay. Special permit everywhere.
Anything's debatable, so.
Okay. And then we're adding,
The,
the T is, the T superscript represents,
oh, the sort of like, the MBTA zone,
Oh,
transit.
transit. Okay,
So an MBTA zone, we're only really required to add multifamily by right.
Okay.
So,
we have adaptive reuse and relocation of structures for architectural salvage, okay? Tiny house, compound,
Nantucket has the tiny house bylaw.
they do,
Yeah.
of course they do. Museum, including open air and living history,
Mansfield has a compound bylaw.
okay? Okay, we have market and micro retail, and roadside kiosk and self-service and automated retail. Okay, so a lot more definitiveness on the retail and commercial
Mhm.
side of things there. These are all existing. Okay, so you are adding back in the social consumption. Oh, no, we're not.
It's just
We
how
are
it's
adding
written.
back in the social consumption as a
I-
special permit.
If
in
if
this.
it's available at some point, it doesn't, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I know when we rolled out the bylaw, there was a question of how do we even regulate this? Do they even have, do the police even have tests for things? And yeah, it opened up many cans of worms. So we have civil defense for industrial use, okay?
that would basically be like, facilities for emergency services.
Yeah. And we have some additional specificity around life sciences, okay?
The yellow markings are what I would say is like my sort of life science.
Yeah. I know we have, there was a group looking at it from a life science perspective that we had talked to us a year ago.
Mm.
Paul was still around.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I have a file on it.
It was cold,
Yep,
so we have a life, and then,
Catherine something or other.
yeah, I have her card on my
Yeah.
desk somewhere. And then this is
That's
the,
just the village overlay in itself, so that's what you would add on to either the park district or the mill district to, I guess, transform it into like a livable area.
okay,
And that also doesn't include multifamilies or whatever, it's just single-family homes.
and then everything else is by permit. Yeah, so it's, everything else is a no, basically.
Well,
Yeah. If it's not there, then it's not
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay, and then we have the mill district, the park district. Similar,
just the same layout, but just what's added in there.
this is what would be allowed and what would be potentially permitted. So museums are allowed by right in a parks district.
It's an educational facility kind of, but I think it's just more specific.
Okay.
I would think in Plymouth Plantation,
Yeah, but
but there's still dimensional requirements for the lots too, so.
yeah,
The biggest difference that I think would be noticeable right off the bat is for the park district, I think it should only be 2 stories.
Okay.
We don't have a 2-story district. We don't have something that is less colonial and more of a cottage district.
Okay. And then,
And then,
any of these you want me to go into?
sure, the mill one next, I guess, it goes in order.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was,
And the mill district would be at the same height, it'd be 3 stories, 35 feet tall, same as residential properties. So the transition wouldn't be like abrupt or noticeable, it's just still shorter than our village commercial and commercial.
okay.
If we were to do an
MBTA,
MBTA overlay,
yeah. That one's
it's minimum, pretty much.
That one's pretty small. And then the life science, did they open that one already? I don't know if it did. Come on, computer. You can do it. Okay. So this one we have in life science. Okay. So, obviously there's too many line items here to go through in
Sure.
a short amount of time. So, what, I'll stop sharing now. What is the, clearly you have a vision behind what you're looking to do with all of these. So, I guess what would you see as the potential next step for something like this? Because to me, it looks like, it feels like something that would be part of like an overhaul of our zoning code.
I think we would have to go step by step. I think number one would be the implementation of, just designing the 2 new districts and the overlays without them being implemented anywhere in town yet, just adding it to our code. It can be added somewhere in town by a zoning change in the future. If you could imagine what we have now as a set of crayons, we have like 4 or 5 crayons to color the blank map with. I just want to add a few more crayons for nuance. I don't want to change any of the zonings yet. I just want to add the options so we have more to design with, more for the developers to work with, more for people in town to choose from. Especially something along the lines, the original thought was that village commercial is too big to go into our neighborhoods, and our neighborhoods are sometimes a little bit flat or dead. Down the road, we used to have a laundromat and a corner store and a daycare, and none of that's allowed anymore, really. The daycare kind of can, but most of the retail and stuff cannot. So I'd like to bring that back as an option. I think the separation between single-family home and multi-family home neighborhoods is an important aspect to keep apart. So the neighborhoods could choose that maybe they don't want multifamily in their neighborhood, or it does want to be a multifamily neighborhood. We are going to be... Whoever decides to vote when they do zoning changes, we won't apply it until somebody wants to take on that zone. The same way right now, if I own property, I could try to make it village commercial.
How would you, like,
Other than,
how would you get around spot zoning?
Well, you have to have a certain number of properties that would agree. It can't be one house that
It just
does it.
seems unattainable to me.
But we just did it. We just rezoned our center to Village Center Court.
I know, do you know how long that took, just doing that?
But we also just, we
just saying,
just
do you know how
rezoned
many-
our industrial park too.
I'm just saying, if breaking it off by small pieces, would it take a year to do VCC? If not more?
it took a while.
But you need 10 lots, right? So you're not spot zoning. It's literally, most cul-de-sacs would make the cut
Yeah, I forget, but.
to rezone just their cul-de-sac. And then it wouldn't affect another neighborhood.
The simplest thing, if you wanted to do, is adding new definitions. Because it's very simple. Our code doesn't have this, we're adding it, we think it should be allowed in this zone, not this zone. It's simple, it's easy to bite off for anybody who's voting.
Sure. other thing is that if, in a sense, we're running out of space to build because our lowest residential zone is 40,000 square feet. No matter where we choose to build in town now is going to eat up more.
It's going to be a lower
space.
density use than what you're proposing.
It would be really nice to have an option to infill, like areas that are already happening.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it would definitely provide a way to get greater density in town in a lot of areas.
the mill
Try to sell
district,
that at town meeting.
That I was
Not
going to
gonna
say, I
happen.
think selling
It's
that would be,
complete opposite of what any town meeting has ever spoken to.
I think it would be a challenge to get town meeting to approve it. I think, because the takeaway that I would have looking at this chart is ignoring all of the benefits of what you're looking to do is you're looking to turn R40 into R15, and every house is gonna be chopped, every lot's gonna be chopped in half, and everything's gonna be smashed together.
I am not looking to do that. I'm looking to turn R40 into R45. I'm looking to put R15 as another option. So what exists in town right now would not change until an area was approved of by the town to go through a zoning change.
So R40s would become R45s,
Because then it,
R60 would be,
I think, could be absorbed into R45 if they wanted to, or it could go to R90, or we could retain it as R60 for now, and phase it out over time, or if we choose to retain it. Either way, I think the R40 is the one that messes up the exchange. R60 does not necessarily.
okay.
15,000 square foot lots fit into R60.
I mean, the lots don't always add up.
I know they're not
to
perfect, but
everybody,
there's
so-
a,
And we have so many existing non-conforming lots that,
We'll need to add another zoning board meeting every month just to
yeah,
cover all the sections 1.6 findings.
yeah. Yeah,
the mill district also does meet MBTA requirements without a blank sheet to go far beyond what we would want. It can give us the minimum standards to meet MBTA and let us set a set of breaks. As opposed to, if we make the commercial district our MBTA and say 3 or more apartment units per building by right, with no limit at all, we will see the largest scale apartments that any developer wants to build.
yeah.
If we were to do it in what I've proposed as the mill district, all the building sizes would be restricted down to a much greater degree than they are in the commercial zone, but still making MBTA
We could,
minimums.
but we could also put specificity on an overlay for the MBTA if we wanted to.
It's fair.
Yeah.
It's a lot to
It's
go over, like,
it's a lot to
it clearly
think
needs to be round table a bunch, but
This is one of those times where I wish we had, like, a town
Planner?
planner on staff to go through, like, okay, when towns look at this scope of a bylaw change,
the first iteration of
is this
this went
something
to Paul.
that, is this something that we should, that Serpent would study with a grant and give us guidance on, or something like that? That's where I'm feeling a little bit lost of like, what would be the next step?
Would the board want me to approach Serpid with this and see what their reaction is to it? I'm on the commission, like I can stop by the office and kind of like chat.
I think.
That Serpent does not work for free.
Yeah, I was gonna say who's gonna pay for it.
That's why I mentioned the word grant, yeah.
Yeah, and we get a certain number of hours of
Yeah.
Serpent, but I think we've
Oh,
got
yeah, I'm sure
projects
we
lined
use
up
that
for like the
pretty
next
well.
3 years, so.
If what, they just did come in and give us a presentation asking us to do basically what's in this.
We paid for it.
It was with a grant, yeah.
And their analysis kind of points us in this direction. it might not be the perfect plan, it definitely needs critique, but.
Toward the MBTA, they didn't look at everything else.
But they recommended small lot sizing, they
Oh, yeah.
referenced the Grove and
Yeah.
mixed use, like,
Yeah.
so.
Let me see. Would you have any objection if, as a starting point here, if, Brian, if you would be willing and able to just reach out to Serped and see if they have an overview or something that, a standard list of, if a town is looking at a significant bylaw change, what types of grants do they generally apply for? Or something like that to support the effort, potentially with their, to work through them, or something like that.
Do we also want to try to bring this up to the attorney that we do have a grant for the recodification of Norton?
He's just renumbering, right? Basically.
Well,
I don't think they're doing,
I'm sorry.
I think they're doing tactical changes, not strategic changes. Correct?
Yeah, I think they're kind of finding deficiencies.
Yeah, so I didn't view it as, I think I would view it as outside of the scope that they're working on right now. We could certainly work with them through whatever grant as well, if that made sense. I don't think the grant would be specifically tied to Serped. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But I think that would be the first thing I would recommend is just, let's just get a stake, or not a stake, excuse me, a status of, okay, when towns are looking at, because I view this as a significant bylaw change.
Yeah, for sure.
So when towns are considering significant bylaw changes, what grants are available, what programs generally would they go to support that effort? If we get that list, we can look at, do any of these grants make sense to apply for? We don't have a grant writer, trying to figure out something, how we want to do that.
Many moons ago, I was talking to Paul, and we got
Oh,
a
yeah,
little headway about we just need a grant writer. We need a grant writer
They-
position between Concom and Planning Board, and it works in that office, whether it's part-time, full-time,
yeah.
assistant planner / grant writer / all of the above. I
Jim
could pay them,
Carlino was asking for one years ago.
they could pay for
Some-
themselves and double, triple, quadruple over. If they
Get
have that
somebody from
position.
Wheat. They're right there.
Hmm?
Get somebody from Wheat, they're right there. Yeah. But that would be, I think that's what would make sense as an initial step to me.
Because,
I'm
Listen,
not
this is-
opposed to some of the concepts that you have.
Sure.
But the larger ramifications, some of it, I don't feel like I fully have a grasp of.
oh, yeah, I mean,
So,
when I started thinking about this when Paul was here,
yeah,
and the first iteration of this went to him, and then, you know, I briefly talked with Maria when she was here. You know, our master plan calls for this sort of assignment, for new zoning districts, new overlays to be explored, for mixed use to be explored, for smaller lot, like,
yeah.
and it's been reiterated by Serpent, and it seems to be a fairly viable movement. Mixed-use neighborhoods on smaller sized lots tend to be the most economically viable. They're the highest tax revenue. The 5,000 square foot lots down the Grove, per square footage, make the highest tax revenue out in town. My neighborhood with, like, well, I guess one 45,000 square foot lot with one house on it might pay $2,000 a year, but that's 9 of my 5,000 square foot lots down the Grove.
How much a year? 45,000 square foot lot with a house.
How much do you pay for taxes? I don't know.
Mine's all in my escrow for my mortgage, so I lose track. Oh.
But
That
Number is nowhere close to you.
Nowhere near
I
2,000.
think it's low, yeah.
That's low by a matter of
Multiples.
multiples of 3 to 4, if
Yeah.
not.
I'm an R40.
I was gonna say 5. but yeah.
Yeah,
But no,
4 to 5.
I understand the concept.
But based on the
If
square
you-
footage of your house, if the
it's-
same size house was on a bigger lot, it doesn't,
If
I'm
you
gonna
have a
cost
piece of land, you
I'm
can
gonna
get
have
more
to-
tax revenue out of it if you cut it into smaller chunks. That makes sense. Because in theory, you're gonna use up more of the available land area as improved area, so you're gonna spike the amount of land that's being taxed as improved.
If you're gonna add, then, I mean, how
So-
do you judge school system impacts on jamming that much more housing?
because they're paying the tax on the land. Like, again, you're fitting
Oh, yeah.
9 homes
No,
in the space
but
that
I'm
one
saying
home would
you
be.
gotta extrapolate it out way down. Now you have how many more, not that, we're not looking for more housing.
But single-family homes pay the taxes for their kids to go to school. Apartments don't
They
necessarily.
don't, they don't cover it though.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, so that, I think there's a lot to discuss. I think
We need the guidance of a professional suburban planner.
that would be that's my initial reaction.
Almost like a position that should be on the town staff.
Yeah,
If we,
that'd be
yeah.
great.
Would be great.
In terms of adding uses to the use table, if we want to propose those for fall and add those to the list, if there are specific ones that we think are really missing, we can do that and add that to our list. That, I think, is something that is, if we have specific definitions that make sense, that we can take from Mansfield or something like that,
Sure.
that makes sense.
I mean, those simple things like right now in VC and VC, specifically VC, maybe even commercial, you're not allowed to have a rental company. Rental's not this.
Right,
The
used
amount-
cars, but not, sales, but not rental. Yeah.
There's,
Rental of autos or
no,
buildings?
like equipment rentals.
We have 2 equipment rental
And
places.
2 of them got shut down because they weren't audited, so, because there was no specific definition anywhere in our bylaw for it.
We have equipment rental. It's in our industrial zone.
Yep, but look where the equipment rental places are.
The one that was down on West Main, I thought
Yeah.
moved down to East Main.
He got thrown on West Main because it wasn't allowed, I believe.
There was a that's Village Commercial there.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so those changes, I think,
But
are
Witten's
easy
there
enough to
still.
bite off if we
Who
wanted to
does
do
the
those. I don't
dumpster
know.
rentals?
Beyond that, I think I struggle to
I remember 2 specific circumstances where it couldn't fit in.
feel like I'm ready to take that on.
That's Epic equipment.
The larger, yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, it's one introduction, so I think it definitely needs time to sit with
Oh, yeah.
everybody before it comes into play. Again, it started with me first thinking that we need something a little bit more simple than Village Commercial, and then it's gone in
Yeah.
10 directions from there, but I think there's a lot of ways to improve the town, but I think the best way to do it is to not change what the town is yet, but like I said, add a couple more crayons to the crayon box that people or neighborhoods can choose to use.
Yeah, it's certainly a concept. It would,
We also want to be very careful about spending grant money on something that is not going to pass town meeting.
But again, if you
it
wanted
would
to,
definitely be challenged.
like an example of the park district with the village overlay, it would be just driving down Reservoir Street. That's what the result of it would look like, but with even, more refined uses, so.
It's still sore.
Yeah,
No.
I understand.
Just twist that just a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So, I
this,
think
this town
having
has
it-
no money unless they want to fight something, and then they will spend every dollar in their wallet to put a campaign against you.
That's fair. That's fair.
Take it from me.
yeah. So, I think,
They will spend $10,000 to save $2,000.
so.
Somebody has to try to do something, so I'm gonna put my effort in, I guess. Most of it will be in vain. If I can accomplish 1/10 of what I wanna do, that'd be great.
I just don't want to waste resources that are lacking
I would hate to not take the opportunity to fix the problem of our lacking resources. I believe the problem that we're facing in town with taxes, the schools, our budgets, all of our funding, comes down to what exists right now in our zoning code and how it has changed the town over the last several decades because of what has had to be developed based on the code we've given it. All of this that exists now in our code has only been implemented for the last 50 or 80 years. What our town historically was, how our neighborhoods were originally built, the businesses that were allowed to be there. What our town was is not currently allowed to exist anymore. The code that we have now is changing our town from what it was historically. It's not saving our town from changing.
Yes. I hear that.
But you're getting further away, that's getting further away from what you were 50, 80 years ago.
This replicates Chartley, Barrowsville, The Grove, King Philip. This is a replication of the neighborhoods that we have in Norton that are not any longer allowed. You cannot recreate Chartley. You cannot recreate The Grove. You cannot recreate King Philip. You cannot recreate those clusters anymore in the form that they are, because our code does not allow that in most places.
And I think the town is pretty happy with that. They don't want more people here.
And that's why I said not multifamilies, that's why you should limit it to single-family homes or no
They don't-
homes in those districts.
They don't want home, they don't want any, well, they literally want to close the borders. They want nothing here, and they want people that have moved here in the past 10 years to move out so they can go back to farmland. That's what this town wants.
And our population has barely grown over the last 10 or 20 years. We've maybe gone up a couple thousand people in the last 20 or 30 years. It's barely risen, and our housing stock has relatively stayed the same.
When I moved here, the population was around, there was, in the past 15 years, there has been a significant increase.
And what would your estimate be? Like, because it's gone from about 15,000 to about 19,000 in the last 20 years.
That's a 25% increase in the last decade.
Yeah, it's not that crazy.
That's
That's
substantial.
That's huge.
That's massive.
That is huge. So,
So, all we're doing, all I've suggested now as a first step is, let's just get a baseline of what grant programs exist, how they might be something we could look at applying. I think that's a good first step, given the fact that we don't have a planner, that we are an elected board that is not planners. And that it's not something, and I feel like if we were to do it or not do it, even if we were to do it, it would be something that would be, this or some other version of a change would be something that would be better if supported by Serped or some other consulting engineering firm that says, this is what you want to do because it's what Canton did, or something like that, that, I just picked Canton out of a hat. I don't know what Canton zoning code is. To provide some context to it, to look at things in that perspective. So that's the first step. If we choose to look to apply for a grant, that's a separate discussion. Once we understand what's out there and what the normal process would be. I don't see this as something that would be done before 2025, at least.
Yeah.
Probably, depending on how many pieces you break it up into. And that's, again, I think Laura has oversimplified some of the town's attitudes, but I don't think she's that far off for a significant portion of the population.
No,
So,
I believe it, I've heard it
Given
many
the-
times,
yeah, so,
but somebody has to pose the idea. And I do think there's gotta be at least some level of town that does support the idea.
I don't disagree with, there probably is a portion of town who would be in favor of more smaller lots and generating more activity in those areas.
There's also a time frame of how long any changes take to affect anything. Look,
Oh, yeah,
what have we had for VCC?
very little.
1, 2?
Well, to be fair, it also took like the state a year to post it in the register, whatever they did,
Yeah.
and that slowed up a couple of things,
But still.
but, yeah, we've had a couple of things.
And it's not a very big district either. Most of it's
No.
Wheaton land and historic, so it's hard to change.
Yeah, but, no, I hear what you're saying, Alan, too, that,
That's also a reflection on if we were to implement something here, it also wouldn't be that day.
That's what I said.
yes,
So, I mean, everything is a
yeah,
gradual.
so, good discussion, thought-provoking. Thank you. Is there anything else anybody wanted to say in tonight's meeting?
Kind of wanted to pick out dates for February and March if possible, but I know we're missing one.
Did we not have that?
We've only got through January,
Okay.
and I'm getting requests for,
Let's see, February will probably be easy, because we'll be avoiding what's our January date?
23rd.
23rd? So we got January 23rd,
And the 9th,
Yeah.
and President's Day is the 19th. So I would say,
is that like does that mean a school vacation week?
exactly.
Got it.
So I would say we'd be looking at,
the 13th and 27th? Or the 6th and 27th?
Yeah, either one actually, is probably fine. So it's actually not as easy. There's no elections. I would say the 6th and the 27th, unless anybody has any objections.
That works.
Gives us the week before vacation as well, to not be here. And then 27th, so we'd look at March 12th and 26th. Any objections to those?
12th and 26th, those are good.
And in April, we would be getting into elections. Any objections to stopping in March? So I'm sure if the
I
elections.
just need first quarter, that helps a lot, thank you.
First quarter is done. Okay. I had to think about it, I just got a notice for jury duty in March, so I had to think about when that was. Okay. Anything else that we wanted to discuss? Otherwise, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Wayne. Have a good night.